The courtroom fell silent as Richard's lawyer fixed Tom with an icy stare. "Tell me, Mr. Henderson, how does it feel to go from near bankruptcy to dating a billionaire?" Tom's hands clenched as he felt Victoria's worried eyes on him. Everything hung in the balance, their relationship. Marcus's future, Emma's happiness. He glanced at the children, their faces tense with fear. "I realized it," Tom said slowly, his voice gaining strength. "When I saw her teaching my daughter that being smart wasn't something to hide. When she spent 3 hours helping Marcus with a school project because she wanted to understand what fascinated him. When she worked beside me on her father's car, not caring about dirt or appearances." He turned directly to the judge. "Your Honor, I've been poor my whole life. I know what people think that I'm with Victoria for money, but I've been poor and happy, and I've seen rich and miserable. Money doesn't fix what's broken inside. Connection does. Family does. If this story touches your heart, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and hit that like button to support more heartwarming stories like this one." The rain pounded against the corrugated metal roof of Murphy's garage like an impatient drummer. Tom Henderson wiped his brow with the back of his forearm, leaving another streak of grease to join the constellation already marking his weathered face. The clock on the wall read 11:42 p.m., nearly midnight, and he was still elbow-deep in the guts of a 1967 Shelby GT 500, a car worth more than he'd make in a decade. "Come on, sweetheart," he whispered to the engine, his calloused fingers delicately tracing the fuel line. "I know you've got more miles in you. Just need someone to believe in you." Murphy had been skeptical when the flatbed arrived carrying the Shelby. Some rich person's toy. The old man had grunted before heading home. "Charge 'em triple." But Tom couldn't bring himself to do that. Not when he saw the carburetor's desperate state, the timing chain crying out for attention, the fuel pump ready to surrender. This wasn't just any car, it was someone's broken dream. As he worked through the night, Tom's mind drifted to the stack of bills waiting on his kitchen counter. 3 months behind on rent. Emma needed new shoes for school again. 8-year-olds grew too fast. The refrigerator made that concerning rattle whenever the compressor kicked on. Life as a single father wasn't just emotionally taxing. It was a financial high-wire act without a safety net. 5 years. 5 years since Sarah had squeezed his hand one last time in that hospital room, her voice barely a whisper. Keep living, Tom, not just existing. Some days he wondered if he was honoring that promise at all. By dawn, the Shelby purred like it had just rolled off the assembly line. Tom stepped back, wiping his hands on a shop rag as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the grimy windows, making the candy apple red paint gleam like fresh blood. "You'll do," he said to the car, patting its fender affectionately. The gentle hum of an approaching engine made him turn. Not the thunderous roar of a luxury sports car or the whisper-quiet purr of a limousine, just the modest sound of a rental sedan pulling into the lot. Victoria Sterling stepped out of the Toyota Camry like she was exiting a yacht, all fluid grace, despite the ordinary vehicle. She wore simple jeans and a white button-down shirt, but something about the way she carried herself whispered money louder than any designer label could shout. Her auburn hair caught the early light as she walked straight toward the Mustang, barely glancing at Tom. "May I?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of reverence as she gestured toward the driver's door. Tom nodded, suddenly conscious of his oil-stained coveralls. "She's all yours, ma'am. Everything's been sorted, carburetor rebuild, new fuel pump, timing chain adjusted. She'll run like she did in '67, Victoria finished, sliding behind the wheel with practiced ease. The engine roared to life at her touch, settling into a perfect idle that made Tom's chest swell with pride. She listened with her eyes closed, head tilted slightly, as if the engine was whispering secrets only she could hear. For 10 minutes, she examined every detail, not the casual inspection of a satisfied customer, but the methodical review of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. She checked the gaps between body panels, ran her fingers along the restored chrome, even got down on her knees to peer underneath the chassis. "You replaced the exhaust hangers," she observed, not a question but a statement of approval. "They were rusted through. Figured while I was under there. And you used the original Ford part numbers. She stood, brushing dust from her knees. Tom shrugged. Didn't seem right. A car like this deserves respect. Victoria turned to face him fully for the first time. Her eyes were the color of aged whiskey, and they studied him with the same intensity she'd given the car. You worked through the night. It wasn't a question, but Tom answered anyway. She needed it. Sometimes you can't rush. Will you marry me? The words hung in the air between them like a wrench dropped on concrete. Tom's brain simply refused to process them. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Somewhere in the back of the garage, the radio played a tinny country song about trucks and heartbreak. What? Victoria's expression didn't change. No smile, no blush, no indication that she'd just proposed marriage to a complete stranger. I've been watching the security footage all night. The way you talked to her, yes. I heard you talking to the car. The way you treated every bolt, every wire, like it mattered. Do you know how rare that is? Tom's worn wedding ring suddenly felt heavy on his finger. He twisted it unconsciously, a habit from the 5 years since Sarah had passed. Ma'am, I think maybe you're confused. I just fixed your car. That's my job. No. Victoria stepped closer, and Tom caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle and expensive that reminded him of rain on summer evenings. Your job was to make it run. What you did was bring her back to life. There's a difference. Look, I appreciate the compliment, but I'm 34 years old, Victoria interrupted, her voice steady and matter-of-fact. I run a technology empire worth $2.3 billion. I've been married once. To a man who saw dollar signs when he looked at me. I've dated men who collected me like I collect cars. And in all that time, I've never seen anyone treat an inanimate object with more genuine care than most people show their own children. Tom took a step back, bumping into his tool cart. I have a daughter, Emma. She's 8. I know. Hun. You know, Victoria reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card, not the cheap, flimsy kind Tom got from parts suppliers, but something thick and elegant with raised lettering. I know quite a bit about you. Tom Henderson, single father. Wife died of cancer 5 years ago. You've worked at Murphy's for 7 years. Never missed a day except when Emma was sick. You drive a 15-year-old Honda that you maintain meticulously. You're 3 months behind on your rent, but still bought Emma new school shoes last week. A cold feeling settled in Tom's stomach. You had me investigated. I investigate all potential investments. She placed the card on the workbench beside him. The offer stands. I know what I want. Mr. Henderson, I want someone who treats precious things like they're precious. Someone who stays up all night to make something broken whole again. Someone who talks to machines like they have souls. This is insane. Is it? Victoria walked back to her rental car, pausing at the door. You know what's insane, having everything and feeling nothing. Owning a dozen cars my father would have killed to touch, and not knowing how to change my own oil. That's insane. She gestured toward the Shelby. Keep her for a week. Drive her. Get to know her. She was my father's dream car. He died before he could afford one. I bought her to feel close to him, but she's been broken for 2 years. 3 shops couldn't fix her. You did it in one night. Tom found his voice. That doesn't mean a week, Mr. Henderson. Drive her. Think about my offer. And ask yourself this, when was the last time someone saw you for exactly who you are and decided that was exactly what they wanted? She drove away in the rental Camry, leaving Tom standing in the garage with a business card in one hand and the keys to a $200,000 car in the other. The Shelby sat there, gleaming in the morning light, engine ticking as it cooled. Well, Tom said to the car, what the hell do I do now? The Mustang, predictably, didn't answer. Murphy's coffee nearly ended up on the floor when Tom told him about the proposal. The old man's hand froze halfway to his mouth, ceramic mug suspended in disbelief. She said what now? Asked me to marry her. Tom slumped against the workbench, still holding Victoria Sterling's business card like it might explode. Right here, just asked. Murphy set his mug down carefully, as if sudden movements might shatter this bizarre new reality. The Victoria Sterling, the one who owns half the tech companies in Silicon Valley, apparently, and she proposed to you. I know how it sounds. Murphy scratched his gray beard, leaving a small grease smudge on his chin. Son, in 40 years of running this shop, I've heard some wild tales, but this one takes the whole damn cake and the bakery with it. The bell above the door chimed, and Hank Peterson walked in with his usual Tuesday oil change appointment within 5 minutes. He'd overheard enough to piece together the story. By lunchtime, half the town knew that Tom Henderson had been proposed to by a billionaire. The small town of Millbrook had a population of 8,000 and a gossip network that could rival the internet for speed. Tom tried to focus on an alternator replacement, but every few minutes another familiar face would pop into the garage with some excuse. Just checking on my wiper fluid, said Mrs. Chen from the grocery store, her eyes darting between Tom and the Shelby. Thought I heard a funny noise, claimed Bob Martinez, whose truck hadn't made a funny noise in the 10 years Tom had been maintaining it, by the time Tom picked Emma up from school. Even her third-grade teacher was giving him curious looks. Dad, why is everyone acting weird? Emma asked as they walked to his old Honda, her rainbow backpack bouncing with each step. She clutched an art project, a painted handprint turkey that was definitely more hand than turkey. Just one of those days, kiddo. But Emma was too smart for deflection. During the drive home, she peppered him with questions. Mackenzie said her mom said you met a princess. Is that true? Tom gripped the steering wheel tighter. Not a princess. Just a lady who needed her car fixed. A rich lady? Yeah, she has a lot of money. Is she pretty? Tom thought about Victoria's whiskey-colored eyes, the way she'd moved around the Mustang with such reverence. I suppose she is. Are you going to marry her? The Honda swerved slightly. What nowhere did you? Who told you that? Mackenzie's mom told Sophia's mom, who told Tommy's mom, who told Tommy, who told everyone at recess. Emma counted off the gossip chain on her small fingers. Tommy said you're going to be rich and buy me a pony. I'm not buying you a pony, but you are getting married. Tom pulled into their apartment complex parking lot, the building showing every one of its 40 years paint peeled from the railings, and the playground equipment had been temporarily removed 2 years ago. Remember when we talked about how sometimes grown-ups say things they don't mean, like when Uncle Jerry says he'll quit smoking? Exactly like that. The lady, she said something she didn't mean. That's all. But Emma wasn't satisfied. During dinner, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it, their Tuesday tradition, she kept circling back to the topic. Maybe she did mean it, Emma said, twirling her fork thoughtfully. Maybe she thinks you're really nice. You are really nice, Dad. Thank you, sweetheart. And you're good at fixing things. That's my job. And you make the best grilled cheese sandwiches. Tom smiled despite himself. That's true. I am the grilled cheese champion. So maybe she wants to marry you for your grilled cheese? I don't think billionaires care about grilled cheese. Then she's not very smart. After Emma went to bed, Tom sat at their small kitchen table with his laptop, the stack of bills pushed to one side. He'd never Googled someone before, felt strange doing it now. Like he was peeking through their windows. Victoria Sterling's digital footprint was surprisingly small for someone of her wealth. A few articles about her company. Victite, a Forbes profile from 3 years ago, a charity gala photo where she stood alone in an elegant black dress, smiling the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. The biographical details were sparse. Stanford graduate, inherited her father's small software company and built it into an empire. Divorced, one son, notably private, donated millions to vocational schools and trade programs. Tom clicked on an older article and found a rare personal quote. My father was a mechanic who died with engine oil under his fingernails and dreams in his heart. Everything I build is just trying to finish what he started. He closed the laptop and picked up her business card again. The address was for an office building downtown, but she'd written something on the back in neat handwriting. The offer is sincere. Through the thin apartment walls, he could hear their neighbor's television blaring a game show. Someone upstairs was arguing. A siren wailed in the distance. This was their life. Not fancy, not easy, but theirs. He looked at the photo stuck to the refrigerator, him and Emma, at the county fair last summer. Her face painted like a butterfly, his shirt stained with snow cone syrup. Next to it hung her Father's Day card from kindergarten, "World's Best Dad," in crooked crayon letters. Tom walked quietly to Emma's doorway and watched her sleep, Mr. Bunny tucked under one arm. Sarah had made that stuffed rabbit when she was first diagnosed, wanting to leave something soft for Emma to hold on to. "What would you do?" "Sarah," he whispered to the empty air. "Some crazy rich lady wants to marry me because I fixed her car. You'd laugh yourself sick, wouldn't you?" He could almost hear her voice. "Tom Henderson, you think too much. What does your gut say?" His gut said this was insane. His gut said Victoria Sterling lived in a different world, one where people investigated mechanics and proposed marriage to strangers. His gut said he had no business even thinking about this. But his gut also remembered the way she looked at the Mustang, not like a possession, but like a connection to someone she'd lost. The same way he looked at Mr. Bunny or Sarah's cookbook on the shelf. Tom placed the business card on top of the bills and went to bed. Through his bedroom window, he could see the Shelby parked under the apartment's lone streetlight, gleaming like a jewel among the tired sedans and minivans. "1 week," he muttered, pulling the covers up. What's the worst that could happen in 1 week, as it turned out? Quite a lot. A week passed in a blur of curious stares and whispered conversations. Tom had driven the Shelby exactly twice, once around the block, to make sure everything was running smoothly, and once to take Emma for ice cream, where she'd insisted on eating in the car despite his protests about chocolate sauce and leather seats. He was under a Civic doing an oil change when he heard the distinctive rumble of another classic Mustang pulling into the garage. This one sounded rougher, wounded, like it was running on hope and maybe 5 cylinders. "Tom," Murphy's voice carried a note of amusement. "You've got a visitor." Tom slid out from under the car to find Victoria Sterling standing beside a weathered 1965 Mustang. This one in desperate need of everything, rust bloomed across the quarter panels like brown flowers, and the engine coughed rather than purred. "Different car," Tom observed, wiping his hands on his coveralls. "Different problem," Victoria replied. She dressed down again, jeans, work boots, and a flannel shirt that looked suspiciously new. "This one needs more than an overnight miracle. This one needs a resurrection." "Exactly." She ran her hand along the faded paint, and Tom caught something in her expression, a softness that hadn't been there during the proposal. "It was my father's, his project car. He bought it the year I was born, planned to restore it himself. But he spent his weekends working overtime instead, saving for my college fund." She popped the hood, revealing an engine that had seen better decades. He never got past tearing it apart. Tom moved closer, professionally assessing the damage while personally noting the way Victoria's fingers traced the radiator support, gentle as a caress. "This is going to take weeks, maybe months." "I know." She pulled a pair of work gloves from her back pocket, real ones, not the pristine kind people bought for show. "I was hoping you'd teach you how to restore it properly, the way he would have wanted to." She met his eyes, and the billionaire mask slipped completely. "I can rebuild a server farm blindfolded, but I never learned to rebuild an engine. He died before he could teach me." Tom studied her for a long moment. This wasn't the same woman who'd proposed marriage like a business merger. This was a daughter, holding on to pieces of her father, trying to build a bridge across years of absence. "First thing," he said, moving to his tool chest, "is proper assessment. Can't fix what you don't understand." They worked side by side for the next 3 hours. Victoria proved to be a quick study, her hands steady and sure once shown the basics. She asked intelligent questions, took notes in a small leather journal, and didn't flinch when grease smeared across her cheek. "You know your way around an engine," Tom observed as she correctly identified a cracked valve cover. "Theory. Mostly. Dad used to draw diagrams on napkins during dinner. Mom hated it." A smile flickered across her face. "He'd quiz me on part names between bites of spaghetti. Smart man. He was... Victoria straightened, stretching her back. He died when I was 19. Heart attack at work at someone else's shop, fixing someone else's dream while his sat in our garage gathering dust. Tom knew the weight of those words, the way regret could settle in your chest like lead. My wife used to say the only real failure was not trying. Wise woman? She was... They continued working in companionable silence until Emma burst through the door after school, backpack dragging and face lit with excitement. Dad, I got 100 on my spelling test, and... She skidded to a stop, noticing Victoria. Oh, hi. Hi yourself. Victoria smiled, and it transformed her face entirely. You must be Emma. Are you the princess lady? M. Tom's face flushed, but Victoria laughed a genuine sound that filled the garage. No princess, just a lady learning about cars from your dad. He's really good at cars. He's really good at cars, Emma informed her seriously. He can fix anything. One time my bike chain came off and... Emma, honey, why don't you start your homework in the office? But Dad, I'll come check it in a bit. Emma trudged toward the office, but not before stage whispering. She's prettier than Mackenzie's mom said. Victoria tried to hide her smile as Tom's face went from red to burgundy. She's very honest. 8-year-olds don't have much filter. Victoria pulled off her gloves, examining her grease-stained hands with something like pride. Neither do billionaires. Apparently, she leaned against the workbench, choosing her words carefully. About that proposal, you don't have to. I do, actually. She met his eyes. I've been thinking about it all week, how it must have sounded, this crazy rich woman proposing to a stranger over a car repair. It was unexpected. It was impulsive and calculated and desperate, she said, meeting his eyes. All of those things at once. Do you know how long it's been since someone did something just because it was right? Not for money or recognition or networking opportunities. Tom thought about the night he'd spent with the Shelby, talking to it like an old friend, coaxing it back to life. I was just doing my job. No, you weren't. I've had that car in 3 shops, they all did their job. Ran diagnostics, ordered parts, billed hours. You did something else entirely. She paused, vulnerable in a way that probably cost her. You cared. It's a special car. It's your dad's dream. And you treated it like it mattered. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Tom didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. Sometimes silence was its own answer. Victoria straightened, businesslike again, but not cold. I'm modifying my proposal. Oh, I'd like to hire you as my personal mechanic. I have 17 cars that need someone who will treat them like more than expensive toys. She named a salary that made Tom's knees weak. You'd work from my estate garage, state-of-the-art equipment, regular hours, full benefits. Emma could come after school. There's a pool, a library, space to run around. That's, generous. That's practical. I need someone I can trust with things that matter to me. She pulled out a different business card, this one with a personal cell number written on it. The marriage proposal was, call it temporary insanity brought on by watching someone treat metal and oil like it had a soul. Tom took the card, noting her fingers trembled slightly. And if I said yes to the job, then we restore this Mustang together. You teach me what my father couldn't. I pay you enough that Emma never has to worry about college. She gathered her things, preparing to leave. And we see what happens when 2 single parents stop pretending they don't understand loneliness. That's a different kind of proposal. It's the kind that makes sense in daylight. Victoria headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. Think about it. Tom, I'm very good at knowing what I want. I'm still learning how to ask for it properly. After she left, Tom found Emma in the office, homework abandoned, face pressed against the window where she'd obviously been watching. She seems nice, Emma offered carefully. She does. And sad, like you sometimes. Out of the mouths of babes. Yeah, kiddo. Like me sometimes. Maybe, Emma said, returning to her spelling words. You could be sad together. That's better than being sad alone. Tom ruffled his daughter's hair and wondered when she'd gotten so wise. In the garage, two Mustangs sat side by side, one restored and gleaming, one broken and waiting, both carrying the dreams of fathers who'd run out of time. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe some things were worth fixing together. Tom spent 3 sleepless nights staring at Victoria's business card, running calculations on napkins, and talking to Sarah's photo on his nightstand. The salary she'd offered was more than he'd make in 5 years at Murphy's. It meant Emma could have braces without payment plans, college without loans, clothes that weren't from the clearance rack. But it's not just about money, he told Murphy over morning coffee. The older man listening with the patience of someone who'd counseled many life decisions over engine repairs. Of course it's not, Murphy agreed, steam from his mug fogging his glasses. But let me ask you something. When's the last time you took a chance on anything? I take chances. Name one. Tom opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth was, he'd been living safe since Sarah died. Same job, same apartment, same routines. Safe was good. Safe was stable. Safe was slowly drowning in quicksand while pretending the view was nice. She's got a kid too, Murphy continued, so she understands what you're protecting. And that garage of hers I drove by it once. Tom, it's the kind of setup we used to dream about. It's not about the garage. No, Murphy said gently. It's about the fact that a beautiful, intelligent woman saw something in you worth proposing to. And you're so convinced you're not worth it that you're looking for excuses to say no. That hit closer to home than Tom cared to admit. The decision came. Oddly enough, during Emma's school play, she was tree number 3 in a production about environmental awareness, and Tom sat in the cramped auditorium seat, watching her wave her cardboard branches with complete commitment. When she spotted him in the crowd, her whole face lit up. That's when he knew Emma deserved more than managing on less. She deserved opportunities, choices, a chance to be more than tree number 3 if she wanted. He called Victoria that night. Tom, she answered on the second ring, sounding surprised. Is everything okay? I'd like to accept the job offer, with conditions. I'm listening. I keep working for Murphy 2 days a week. He gave me a chance when no one else would. I won't abandon him. Fair. Emma's schedule comes first school events, sick days, whatever she needs. Of course. And we take things slow. The job is the job. Anything else, we see what happens naturally. There was a pause, then Victoria's voice came back, warmer. When can you start? The following Monday. Tom drove his Honda through the gates of Victoria's estate, Emma beside him with her face pressed against the window. The driveway curved through manicured gardens before revealing a house that was large but not ostentatious. Modern lines softened by climbing ivy and window boxes full of flowers. It's like a castle, Emma breathed. It's just a house. Remember what we talked about, be polite. Don't touch anything without asking. And don't mention the marriage thing. That's my girl. Victoria met them at the garage, a converted stable that was indeed the stuff of dreams. Climate-controlled bays, every tool imaginable, lifts that actually worked, and 17 cars in various states of perfection. Welcome, she said, then knelt to Emma's level. You must be the spelling test champion I've heard about. Emma beamed. I got another 100 last week. Impressive. I have a son about your age, Marcus. He's at school now, but he's excited to meet you. He's been asking for a friend who doesn't just want to talk about video games. I like video games, Emma offered, but I also like books and bikes and science. Perfect. Marcus loves science. He's currently building a volcano for his science fair project. Victoria stood, addressing Tom. I thought Emma might like the library while you're working. It's got a children's section, and Mrs. Chen, our housekeeper, has a daughter Emma's age who comes by after school. Tom watched Emma's eyes go wide at the mention of a library. His daughter devoured books like other kids ate candy, but library trips were limited to what they could carry home on the bus. Can I see it? Emma asked, practically vibrating. Victoria led them through a side door into the main house. The library was everything Emma's face suggested. She dreamed of floor-to-ceiling shelves, cozy reading nooks, even a rolling ladder that made Tom immediately nervous. The children's section is here. Victoria gestured to a sunny corner with beanbags and low shelves. And Emma, if you find books you'd like to take home, just let Mrs. Chen know. We have a lending system. Really? Emma's voice came out as a squeak. Really? Now. Shall we let your dad see his new workspace properly? Back in the garage, Victoria walked Tom through the collection. Each car had a story. This one bought at auction. That one inherited from a collector. Several purchased specifically because they reminded her of cars her father had admired. This is the problem, she said, gesturing at the pristine vehicles. They're museum pieces, beautiful, valuable, and completely soulless. I want them to run like they're meant to. I want to drive them without worrying about every mile decreasing their value. Cars are meant to be driven, Tom agreed, running his hand along a 1969 Camaro that probably cost more than most people's houses. Exactly. My financial advisors think I'm crazy. They're investments. Victoria, but investments you can't touch aren't worth much. Are they? Tom thought about Emma's college fund, currently consisting of $247 in a savings account. Depends on what you're investing in. They were interrupted by the arrival of a small boy with Victoria's eyes and a serious expression. He wore a school uniform and carried a backpack that looked too big for his frame. Mom, is this the mechanic who fixed Grandpa's Shelby? This is Mr. Henderson. Yes, Tom. This is Marcus. The boy extended his hand formally. Pleased to meet you. Mom says you can teach us about engines. Us and me and your daughter. Mom says she's smart. Tom shook the small hand, charmed despite himself. Nice to meet you, Marcus. And Emma's very smart. Good. Smart is better than popular, the boy said with the certainty of someone who'd learned that lesson early. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Tom would arrive early. Emma would disappear into the library, or, increasingly often, pair up with Marcus for homework or projects. The two children bonded with the intensity of lonely kids who'd found kindred spirits. Victoria joined Tom in the garage most afternoons, learning steadily and sharing stories about her father between lessons on carburetor rebuilds. She never mentioned the proposal again, but something grew between them in the quiet moments of recognition. Perhaps, of two people trying to build something from broken pieces. You're good with him, Tom observed one afternoon, watching her help Marcus with a particularly frustrating math problem. He's easy to be good with, except when he's being 8. They're all difficult at 8. Emma went through a phase where she'd only eat orange foods. Marcus insisted on wearing a cape to school for 6 months. Victoria smiled at the memory. His father was mortified. It was the first time she'd mentioned her ex-husband. Tom didn't push, but she continued. Richard's very concerned with appearances. Marcus wearing a cape to a private school fundraiser nearly gave him hives. But you let him wear it. Of course. Childhood's short enough without killing the magic early. She met his eyes. Another thing we agree on, I think. That evening, as Tom helped Emma pack up her homework and new library books, she tugged on his sleeve. Dad, I like it here. Yeah. Marcus is funny and smart, and Miss Victoria lets me borrow any book I want, and Mrs. Chen makes cookies. She paused, then added quietly, and you smile more. Tom knelt beside his daughter. Do I, like you used to before? Such a small word to carry so much weight. As they drove home, Tom caught sight of himself in the rearview mirror. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe he was smiling more. The job was good. The pay was better. But something else was shifting too. For the first time in 5 years, the future felt like possibility instead of just persistence. In their garage apartment, he'd hung Victoria's business card on the refrigerator next to Emma's artwork and report cards. Below her official title, she'd written something else in that same neat handwriting. Thank you for saying yes. Tom wasn't sure yet what he'd said yes to just the job, or something more. But for now, it was enough to be moving forward instead of standing still. Saturday mornings at the Sterling estate became their new tradition. Tom would arrive with Emma, toolbox in one hand and her backpack in the other, to find Marcus already in the garage. Wearing coveralls, Victoria had bought him proper ones, like real mechanics wear. Today, Tom announced to his eager audience of two 8-year-olds, "We're learning about brake systems." "Why do cars need brakes?" Marcus asked, notebook already out. "So they can stop." "Dummy," Emma said, then caught herself. "Sorry, that wasn't nice." "It's okay," Marcus replied earnestly. "Sometimes I ask obvious questions to make sure I understand the fundamentals." Tom hid his smile. The boy talked like a tiny professor, all formal words and careful pronunciation. Emma, meanwhile, had grease under her fingernails within 5 minutes and couldn't be happier about it. Victoria appeared with coffee and her own notebook. She'd given up pretending she was too busy to join these sessions, admitting that watching Tom teach the children helped her understand her father's passion in ways her MBA never could. "Mrs. Chen says lunch is at 1, she announced, handing Tom his coffee black. 2 sugars, exactly how he liked it. Somehow she'd learned that without asking. "Can we eat in the garage?" Emma asked hopefully. "Absolutely not," Victoria and Tom said in unison, then caught each other's eyes and laughed. "You sound like parents," Marcus observed, returning to his notes with the air of someone who'd made an important scientific observation. An awkward silence fell. Emma, with her gift for unintentional saves, broke it by crawling under the car they were working on. "Cool, I can see everything from down here." The rest of the morning passed in easy rhythm. Tom explained how hydraulic pressure worked, while Victoria asked the questions the children were too shy to voice. When Marcus struggled with a wrench, Tom guided his hands patiently. When Emma got frustrated with a stuck bolt, Victoria showed her how to apply penetrating oil and weight. "Patience is the hardest part," Victoria said, sitting cross-legged on the garage floor beside Emma. "Designer jeans be damned. But good things usually require it." After lunch, which Mrs. Chen insisted they eat at actual tables, like civilized people, the children discovered the tire swing in the back garden. Their laughter drifted through the windows as Tom and Victoria returned to the garage alone. "I've been thinking about my father a lot lately," Victoria said, working on removing the old brake pads they'd started with. "He would have loved this. Teaching Marcus, seeing Emma so excited about learning. Sarah would have too," Tom admitted. "She always said Emma got her stubbornness from me, but her curiosity from her. Tell me about her." "Sarah," Tom paused, considering. People usually avoided the topic, as if mentioning his dead wife might break him, but Victoria asked like she genuinely wanted to know. "She was a nurse, pediatric ward, loved kids, obviously. We met when I brought in my nephew after he broke his arm falling off his bike." Tom smiled at the memory. "She gave me hell for letting a 7-year-old attempt a homemade ramp." "I sounds like she had good sense." "The best. She was light. You know, the kind of person who made everything brighter just by being there. When she got sick, she spent more time comforting everyone else than worrying about herself." Victoria's hand stilled on the wrench. "How long was she ill?" 2 years. Good days and bad days. Near the end. Mostly bad." Tom focused on his work, muscle memory guiding his hands. "She made me promise to keep living, not just existing. I'm not sure I've kept that promise very well." "I think you're doing better than you know." They worked quietly for a while before Victoria spoke again. "Richard, my ex, he never understood why I cared about my father's dreams. He's dead." Victoria, "Let it go. As if love has an expiration date." "Some people don't get it," Tom agreed. "They think moving on means forgetting." "Exactly. But look at us, you're still wearing your wedding ring, and I'm spending millions collecting cars my father drew on napkins. We're quite the pair of sentimental fools. Could be worse things to be." Victoria smiled, the soft one that appeared when she forgot to be a CEO. "Much worse." A crash from outside interrupted them, followed by guilty giggles. Through the window, they could see both children covered in mud, the tire swing spinning empty. "Marcus Edward Sterling," Victoria called, trying to sound stern. Emma Marie Henderson. Tom added. The children froze. Then Marcus said solemnly, "We can explain." The swing was a physics experiment, Emma added quickly. That went wrong. Marcus concluded. Tom and Victoria exchanged looks and simultaneously burst out laughing. The children, realizing they weren't in serious trouble, began laughing too. "Bath time," Victoria declared. "Both of you, march." "But we're not done with the breaks," Emma protested. "The breaks will be here tomorrow," Tom assured her. "Go on, get cleaned up." As the children trudged toward the house, leaving muddy footprints in their wake, Victoria shook her head. "I haven't seen Marcus this happy, ever. Actually, Emma either. She asked me yesterday if Marcus could be her brother." "What did you tell her?" "That families come in all shapes." Tom wiped his hands on a rag, choosing his words carefully. "She's getting attached. They both are. Is that a bad thing?" "Depends on what happens when this arrangement ends." Victoria turned to face him fully. "Who says it has to end? Everything ends. Victoria, jobs, arrangements, even," he gestured vaguely, encompassing the growing whatever this was between them. "God, you're as much of a pessimist as I am." But she said it fondly. "Maybe that's why this works. Neither of us expects fairy tales. Emma does, Marcus too, in his way." "Then maybe," Victoria said quietly, "we owe it to them to at least try believing in happy endings, even if we're out of practice." That evening, Tom stayed for dinner, a rarity that was becoming less rare. The formal dining room had been abandoned in favor of the kitchen table, where Emma and Marcus could compare their notebooks full of car facts while the adults talked. "Did you know," Marcus announced through a mouthful of spaghetti, "that Tom, I mean, Mr. Henderson once rebuilt an entire engine in 6 hours." "Did you know," Emma countered, "that Miss Victoria's company makes the chips that go in race cars? Actually, we make the processors for the diagnostic equipment," Victoria corrected gently. "But close enough." "That's what I said," Emma replied with 8-year-old confidence. The easy banter continued through dinner and dessert. Mrs. Chen beamed approvingly from the kitchen, muttering something in Mandarin that made Victoria blush. "What did she say?" Tom asked. "Nothing important." "She said Mom looks happy," Marcus translated helpfully, "and that it's about time." "Thank you, Marcus," Victoria said dryly. "Remind me to cancel your Mandarin lessons." As Tom helped Emma gather her things to leave, she made a detour to hug Victoria goodbye, a new development that seemed to surprise them both. "Thank you for letting me borrow this," Emma said, clutching a book about female engineers. "Keep it," Victoria said softly. "It's yours." In the car, Emma was unusually quiet until they were almost home. "Dad, do you like Miss Victoria?" "Sure, kiddo. She's very nice." "No, I mean, do you like her?" Tom's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Where's this coming from?" "Marcus asked me if you were going to be his dad." "What did you tell him?" "That I didn't know, but I wouldn't mind if he was my brother." She paused. "Was that okay?" Tom pulled into their parking spot, buying time. It's complicated because Mom died." The directness of it stole his breath. "Partly. I miss Mom," Emma said quietly. "But I don't think she'd want us to be sad forever. She wouldn't want you to be alone." "I'm not alone. I have you. That's different, and you know it." Sometimes Emma sounded far older than 8. "Miss Victoria's nice, and she's sad like you, and she lets me read any book I want, and she makes you laugh. Mom would like her." Tom reached over to squeeze his daughter's hand. "You might be right, kiddo." "I usually am," Emma said matter-of-factly, then bounced out of the car as if they'd been discussing nothing more serious than homework. That night, after Emma was asleep, Tom stood in his bedroom looking at the photo on his nightstand, him and Sarah on their wedding day, both impossibly young and unaware of how short their time would be. "She's nothing like you," he whispered to the photo. "You were sunshine, and she's moonlight, quieter, sadder. But Emma's right. You'd like her. You'd like that she makes me want to try again." He thought about Victoria's question. Who says it has to end? Maybe it didn't. Maybe some broken things could be rebuilt stronger than before. Maybe two damaged people could create something whole. His phone buzzed with a text. Victoria, the children want to know if you're both free next Saturday. Marcus is insisting on showing Emma his volcano before the science fair. Tom typed back, we'll be there. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally good. It wouldn't be the same without you. Another pause. Then either of you. Tom smiled, set the phone aside, and for the first time in years, fell asleep without the weight of loneliness pressing on his chest. In the apartment next door, someone was playing music too loud. Upstairs, the familiar sound of footsteps paced back and forth. But here, in this small bedroom, with its water-stained ceiling and secondhand furniture, something was changing. Hope that dangerous and persistent thing was taking root despite his best efforts to keep it at bay. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe good things just required patience. Maybe happy endings weren't just for children in fairy tales. The science fair was in full swing when Richard Sterling III arrived like a storm cloud at a picnic. Tom noticed him first, hard to miss a man who walked like he owned not just the room but the entire building. Expensive suit, expensive shoes, expensive haircut, and the kind of tan that came from yachts. Not yard work. Daddy, Marcus's voice carried across the gymnasium, but it was more surprise than joy. Richard nodded to his son the way you'd acknowledge a business associate. Then his eyes found Victoria. She stood frozen beside Marcus's volcano display, her face cycling through emotions too quickly for Tom to catalog. Victoria, we need to talk. Richard, her CEO voice slammed into place like armor. This is hardly the time or place. When you won't return my lawyer's calls, I make my own time and place. His gaze slid to Tom, cataloging and dismissing in one sweep. And you are Tom Henderson. Tom didn't offer his hand. Something about this man made his mechanic's instincts scream danger, like an engine about to throw a rod. The mechanic, Richard said, like he might say, the help. How quaint. Emma pressed closer to Tom's side, her small hand finding his. Perhaps we should step outside, Victoria suggested, but Richard was already making himself comfortable, examining his son's project with theatrical interest. Quite impressive. Marcus, though I see you've inherited your mother's tendency toward unconventional choices, his eyes flicked meaningfully between Tom and Victoria. Speaking of which, I hear you've been playing house with the hired help, exposing our son to inappropriate situations, confusing him with your little working-class experiment. He turned to Tom with a smile that belonged on a shark. No offense. Of course. I'm sure you're very good at what is it you do? Oil changes. Dad's teaching me about engines, Marcus interjected. And Emma's my friend. Yes, I'm sure it's all very educational. Richard's tone suggested otherwise. However, your mother seems to have forgotten that our custody agreement has very specific clauses about the environments you're exposed to. Tom felt Victoria stiffen beside him. Don't what exercise my parental rights protect my son from your increasingly erratic behavior? Richard pulled out his phone with practiced efficiency. First the marriage proposal to a stranger. Oh yes, that made it to my lawyers, and now this. Whatever this is. Playing family with someone so obviously beneath. Stop. Victoria's voice could have frozen fire. Not here, not in front of the children. But Emma, sweet Emma, who'd inherited her mother's protective instincts and her father's stubborn streak, stepped forward. You're mean. The gymnasium seemed to pause. Collective breath held. Richard looked down at her with amused disdain. I beg your pardon. You're mean, Emma repeated louder. And you're wrong about my dad. He's not beneath anybody. He's the best mechanic in the state. And he's nice. And he makes Victoria smile. And you're just jealous because nobody smiles when you show up. Emma, Tom warned, but his daughter was on a roll. And Marcus doesn't even like you. He told me so. He said you only visit when you want something, and you never play with him or read to him or teach him anything cool. Emma Marie Henderson. Tom scooped her up, But the damage was done. Richard's face had gone from tan to pink to an alarming shade of purple. "This," he said with icy precision, "is exactly what I'm talking about. Exposing Marcus to ill-mannered children and their equally inappropriate parents." He turned to Victoria. "Expect papers from my lawyers Monday morning. Full custody review. We'll see what a judge thinks about your unconventional choices." Marcus burst into tears, not the loud sobs of a hurt child, but the silent tears of a boy who'd learned early that making noise during parental conflicts only made things worse. Victoria knelt beside him, whispering reassurances while shooting daggers at her ex-husband. "You got what you wanted," she said quietly. "You've upset everyone. Happy now? I'm protecting my son's interests. You're protecting your own ego." Victoria stood, lifting Marcus with her. "You didn't care about his interests when you missed his birthday for a golf tournament, or when you forgot his piano recital, or when you told him crying was for babies when Whiskers died. Whiskers was a hamster. Whiskers was his friend." The science fair had definitely noticed them now. The parents pretended to study displays while obviously eavesdropping. Tom wanted to sink into the floor, but Emma was clinging to him like a koala, and Marcus needed support. "We're leaving," Tom announced. Grab your backpack." "But Dad, now." Victoria caught his arm as he turned to go. "Tom, wait. I'm sorry. This isn't—" "It's fine," he lied. "Handle your family stuff. We'll talk later." But as he carried Emma out, he heard Richard's parting shot. "Better run, mechanic. This isn't your world, and it never will be." The drive home was silent except for Emma's sniffles. Tom's mind raced through implications: custody battles, lawyers, the ugliness that followed when money got involved in family disputes. He'd watched Sarah's parents try something similar when she got sick, convinced they could provide better care than a mechanic's salary. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered as they pulled into their parking spot. "I ruined everything." "Hey, no!" Tom turned to face her. "You stood up for people you care about. That's never wrong. Maybe could have done it quieter. But he was so mean. Dad, he made Marcus cry." "I know, baby. Is Victoria going to lose Marcus?" Tom didn't have an answer for that. He'd seen enough of the world to know that money talked louder than love in courtrooms, that lawyers could twist unconventional into inappropriate without breaking a sweat. They were eating a subdued dinner of leftover pizza when his phone rang. Victoria. "Tom, can we talk?" "Give me a sec." He stepped onto their small balcony, closing the door behind him. "How's Marcus?" "Asleep. Finally." He asked if you and Emma hated him now." "What? No. Of course not. I told him that. But," she sighed, sounding exhausted, "Richard does this. Shows up just when things are good. Reminds me that happiness is conditional. That everything I have can be taken away." "The custody thing, is he serious?" "Dead serious. He doesn't actually want Marcus full-time. That would interfere with his lifestyle. But he wants to win. And he wants to punish me for moving on." Tom gripped the balcony railing. "This is why you wanted background checks and investigations. You knew something like this might happen." "I knew Richard would object to me being with anyone. I hoped maybe if it was someone successful. Established." She laughed bitterly. "God, that sounds awful, like I was shopping for a resume instead of a person." Victoria. "But then I saw you with that car, and later with Emma, and the way you treat people, even machines, like they matter. And I thought maybe, just maybe, I could have something real, something Richard couldn't buy or break." "He can't break this," Tom said, not sure what this was but certain of his words. "Whatever his lawyers throw at us, we'll handle it. Aren't you think I'm running because some rich jackass in an ugly tie tried to intimidate me?" Tom found himself smiling grimly. "I've rebuilt engines that were supposedly dead. Victoria, I don't give up easy." Silence on the line. Then, "I don't deserve you." "Yeah, well, I don't deserve you either. So we're even." Tom. "Yeah. Tell Emma that Marcus doesn't hate her. He actually said she was the bravest person he knows." "I'll tell her." And Tom. "Yeah. Thank you for not running Most people would, after they hung up. Tom found Emma curled on the couch with Mr. Bunny, Sarah's cookbook open on her lap. You okay, kiddo? I was looking for Mom's hot chocolate recipe, the one that makes everything better. She looked up at him with eyes too wise for eight. But I don't think hot chocolate fixes custody battles. Tom sat beside her, pulling her close. No, probably not, but it doesn't hurt to try. Aha, they made hot chocolate together, Sarah's way, with extra marshmallows and a sprinkle of cinnamon as they sipped. Emma asked, Are we still going to see them, Marcus and Miss Victoria? I don't know. It's complicated now. Because of Marcus's dad. Yeah, Emma considered this, marshmallow foam on her upper lip. You know what Mom used to say, that bullies only win if you let them. When did Mom say that? When Kayla Thompson was being mean in kindergarten. Mom said bullies are just scared people making noise. She looked at him seriously. I think Mr. Richard is a scared people. Scared of what? Of Miss Victoria being happy without him, of Marcus liking you better, of not being the most important. Emma snuggled closer. But we're not going to let him win. Right. Tom kissed the top of her head, marveling at the fierce little warrior he was raising. Right, baby. We're not going to let him win. But as he tucked her into bed later, Tom's confidence wavered. He knew the reality of custody battles, had seen good parents lose to wealthy ones, had watched the system favor bank accounts over bedtime stories. His phone buzzed a text from Victoria. My lawyer says Richard's threat is mostly bluster, but mostly isn't completely. I understand if you need to step back. This isn't what you signed up for. Tom typed back, I signed up to restore broken things. Some just take longer than others. A pause. Then you're either very brave or very foolish. Por qué no los dos, Tom responded, remembering enough high school Spanish for the joke. Now you're just showing off. Good night. Tom, good night. Victoria. Tom stood in his daughter's doorway, watching her sleep with Mr. Bunny clutched tight. In the morning, they'd face whatever came next. Richard Sterling III and his lawyers and his money could try to tear apart what they were building. But Tom had rebuilt engines from scrap metal and determination. He'd held his wife's hand through chemo and raised a daughter solo and kept going when stopping would have been easier. He could handle one bitter ex-husband. He hoped. Tom found the folder by accident. He'd been looking for the invoice for the vintage Corvette parts Victoria had ordered, shuffling through papers on her desk while she took a call from her lawyers. The manila folder fell open, spilling photographs and documents across the mahogany surface. His own face stared back at him from a dozen different angles. Tom at work, Tom picking up Emma from school, Tom grocery shopping, Tom at Sarah's grave on the anniversary of her death. What the hell? Victoria ended her call abruptly, color draining from her face as she saw what he'd discovered. Tom, I can explain. Explain. He held up a photo taken with a telephoto lens, showing him reading Emma a bedtime story through their apartment window. Explain why you have surveillance photos of me and my daughter. It's not what it looks like. Really, because it looks like you hired someone to stalk us. His hands shook as he flipped through more evidence, background checks, credit reports, Sarah's obituary, Emma's school records. Jesus Christ. Victoria. Emma's medical records. You pulled my kid's medical records. I needed to know what her blood type, her vaccination schedule. Tom's voice rose with each word. What possible reason could you have for... He stopped, a worse thought occurring. How long before you brought the Shelby? Victoria sank into a chair, suddenly looking older than her years. 6 months. 6 months. Tom laughed, but there was no humor in it. 6 months of what, watching us, studying us like lab rats. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. He slammed the folder shut, making her flinch. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a rich woman playing games with people's lives. I wasn't playing games. Then what? I was looking for something. Someone. For what, your sick entertainment? For hope. The words exploded from her. I was looking for hope. Okay, for proof that there were still good people in the world, people who did the right thing because it was right, not because they wanted something. Tom stared at her, torn between anger and confusion. So you hired a private investigator. I hired 12 private investigators. She met his eyes, defiant now. Over 2 years. Do you know what I found? Mechanics who overcharged, who did unnecessary work, who took advantage of people who didn't know better. One guy in Boston was running a whole scam targeting elderly customers, and that justifies stalking me. No, nothing justifies it. Victoria pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. But maybe this explains it. She opened it, revealing similar surveillance on other mechanics, dozens of them, all working on the same car, the Shelby. My father's dream car, she said quietly. I've been taking it to different shops for 2 years. Same problem. Every time, most didn't even try to fix it properly. Just charged for diagnostics and parts. Some tried to buy it from me. Sensing desperation, one tried to convince me it was unfixable, hoping I'd sell it for scrap. Tom sank into the opposite chair, anger giving way to bewilderment. You tested them. I tested everyone. I was so tired. Tom, tired of being seen as a wallet with legs. Tired of people being nice to my face while calculating what they could get from me. Richard trained me well, trust no one. Assume everyone has an angle. So you found me? Murphy's Garage came up in a search for certified mechanics. Small shop. Good reviews. Nothing special. I almost didn't bother. She pulled out a specific report. But then I read this. Tom recognized the incident Mrs. Patterson, whose husband had died and left her with a classic Thunderbird she couldn't afford to maintain. He'd fixed it for parts cost only, setting up a payment plan that was basically whenever she could manage. The investigator called you financially foolish but ethically consistent. Victoria almost smiled. He documented 17 similar incidents over 5 years. You fixing cars for cost, bartering repairs for goods, staying late to help stranded motorists. No publicity, no tax write-offs, just helping. That's what people do. No, Victoria said firmly. That's what you do. What good people do. But Tom, I'd spent 2 years learning that good people were extinct in my tax bracket. So you watched me for 6 months, then brought the Shelby. I watched 16 mechanics for various periods. You were different from the start. She pulled out another photo Tom at the garage, talking to a carburetor as he rebuilt it. The investigator sent me this with a note. Subject appears to have emotional attachment to inanimate objects. Like it was a mental defect. Maybe it is. Maybe. Or maybe it's exactly what I was looking for. Victoria leaned forward. Do you know what you said to that carburetor? The investigator had audio. You said, come on, sweetheart. I know you've got more miles in you. Just need someone to believe in you. Tom felt heat rise in his cheeks. I talk to engines. So what? So my father did the same thing. Every car was a person to him, had names, personalities, moods. Her voice caught. I spent millions collecting his dream cars, but they were just metal. Beautiful, expensive metal. Until you. That doesn't excuse. No, it doesn't. But that night, watching you work on the security feed, I saw my father. Same focus, same care, same ridiculous one-sided conversations with machinery. She met his eyes. And I thought, if this man can love a stranger's car this much, imagine how he loves his daughter. Don't. Tom's voice came out rough. Don't bring Emma into your justification. You're right, I'm sorry. Victoria closed the folders, pushed them aside. The proposal wasn't planned. I drove there to pay you, maybe offer you steady work. But then you were explaining what you'd done, and you mentioned staying up because she needed it, and you meant the car. But I heard my father's voice, and I just asked because I reminded you of your dead father. Because you reminded me that people like my father still existed. People who create instead of consume, who fix instead of discard, who see beauty in broken things. Tom stood, pacing to the window. Marcus and Emma were in the garden. building something elaborate with Legos under Mrs. Chen's watchful eye. You researched my daughter, her medical history, her school, her, her mother's death, your wife's entire medical journey, your financial struggles during her treatment, the second mortgage you took out, the bankruptcy you almost filed but didn't because you wanted to teach Emma about keeping commitments. Victoria's voice was steady but sad. I know it all, Tom. Every struggle, every late payment, every night you probably lay awake wondering how to make ends meet. And you thought, what here's a desperate man I can buy? I thought, here's a man who chose his daughter's needs over his own comfort every single time, who kept his wedding ring on, who brought flowers to his wife's grave even when he could barely afford groceries. She stood too, moving closer but not touching. I thought, here's someone who understands that love isn't about what you can get, but what you're willing to give. Stop. Tom turned from the window. Just stop. You can't justify this with pretty words about love and understanding. You invaded our privacy. You had people watching my kid at school. Only twice. To verify enrollment. Only twice. Tom laughed harshly. Oh, well, that's fine then. Only twice violated my daughter's privacy. You're right. You're absolutely right. Victoria moved to her desk, pulled out her phone. I'll call Dr. Morrison, my therapist. She's been telling me for years that my trust issues would destroy any chance at real relationships. Guess she wins that bet. This isn't about your trust issues, Victoria. This is about control. I know. She set the phone down without dialing. Richard controlled me with emotional manipulation. So I decided to control everyone else with information. Know everything. Anticipate everything. Never be surprised again. Tom watched her shoulders slump, the CEO armor finally cracking completely. How many others did you test besides mechanics? 17 potential romantic partners over 3 years. Various setups, charity events, business meetings, even 2 blind dates my friends arranged. She laughed bitterly. The investigators' reports were depressing reading. Married men lying about it. Gold diggers Googling my net worth in the bathroom. One memorable gentleman who tried to steal my identity. So you gave up on traditional dating and started surveilling blue-collar workers. I gave up on my world entirely. Started looking in places Richard would never think to look, places where people worked with their hands and paid their bills and loved their families without calculation. She met his eyes. Places where I might find someone who'd see me as Victoria. Not as a bank account or a business connection or a trophy. And you found me. I found you reading Goodnight Moon to Emma for the 1,000th time with the same enthusiasm as the first. I found you teaching that teenager down the street about oil changes for free. I found you being exactly who you are when you thought no one was watching. Tom sank back into the chair, anger giving way to exhaustion. I don't know what to do with this. Victoria, the violation of it, the deception. I know. If you just asked me out like a normal person, would you have said yes, the billionaire asking out the mechanic? Or would you have assumed I was slumming playing games looking for rough trade to scandalize my rich friends? Tom couldn't answer that honestly. His first instinct would have been suspicion. I did everything wrong, Victoria continued. But Tom, I found everything right. You, Emma, the way Marcus lights up when you teach him something, the way you and I work together in comfortable silence, the way Emma reads to Marcus and he helps her with math. We fit, despite everything that says we shouldn't. You mean you made us fit, studied us until you knew exactly how to... No. Her voice turned fierce. I studied you. Yes, but I can't fake Emma's laugh when Marcus tells his terrible jokes. I can't manufacture the way you smile when you think I'm not looking. I can't create the feeling I get when all 4 of us are together. Like maybe the broken pieces of our families could build something whole. Tom thought about the past months, the easy rhythm they'd fallen into. The way Victoria challenged him, supported him, matched him. The way their children had bonded like siblings separated at birth. Does Marcus know about the investigation? God, no, he's 8. Tom, he just knows I'm happier now that we're happier. And if Richard finds out this surveillance stuff, Victoria's face went pale. He'd use it to bury me in court, prove I'm unstable, manipulative, unfit. She straightened her shoulders. Which is why I'm telling you now. Because Richard's investigators are thorough. They'll find it eventually. And you deserve to hear it from me. You mean I deserved to hear it 6 months ago? Yes. They stood in silence, the weight of truth heavy between them. Outside, the children's laughter drifted through the window, innocent, unaware of the adult complications threatening their newfound happiness. I need time, Tom finally said, to think, to figure out if I can get past this. I understand. I'm not taking Emma away from Marcus. Whatever happens between us, they're friends. Thank you. Tom headed for the door. Paused. The investigation. Is it still active? I terminated it the day after I proposed, fired the investigator, destroyed most of the files. She gestured to the folders. Kept these as a reminder of what fear makes people do. What it made me do. Don't contact me for a few days. Let me work through this. Tom, Victoria called as he reached the door. For what it's worth, everything after that first day has been real. No games, no tests, no surveillance. Just us. Tom didn't answer. Couldn't. He collected Emma, made excuses about work, ignored her protests about leaving Marcus mid-game. The drive home was quiet, his mind churning through everything he'd learned. Victoria had investigated him like he was a business acquisition, violated his privacy, Emma's privacy, built a file on their lives like they were assets to be evaluated. But she'd also really seen him in a way no one had since Sarah, had recognized something in him worth pursuing, worth proposing to, worth fighting for. That night, after Emma was asleep, Tom sat with the ring he'd worn for 5 years, twisting it as he thought. Sarah had always said he was too trusting, too willing to see the good in people. But she'd also said that was what she loved most about him. What do I do here? Sarah, he whispered to the empty room. She lied, but she also chose us. She's controlling and damaged and probably needs years of therapy. But she makes me want to try again. And Emma loves them both. No answer came. Of course the dead kept their counsel, but somewhere in the silence, Tom thought he heard Sarah's laugh, the one that meant he was overcomplicating something simple. The question wasn't whether Victoria had done wrong, she had. The question was whether what they were building together was worth fighting through the wreckage of her fear and his pride to find something true on the other side. Tom didn't have that answer yet, but for the first time since finding those folders, he thought maybe, just maybe, he wanted to find out. The courthouse steps seemed designed to intimidate all marble and gravity, making ordinary people feel small. Tom adjusted his only suit, the one he'd worn to Sarah's funeral, and wished he'd had time to get it pressed. Beside him, Emma clutched his hand, her Sunday dress already wrinkled from nervous fidgeting. Remember what we talked about? Tom asked gently. Tell the truth. Don't be scared. The judge is just trying to help Marcus. Emma recited, but her voice shook. Dad, what if I mess up? You won't, kiddo? Just be yourself. Inside, the hallway echoed with footsteps and muffled conversations. Victoria stood near a window with her legal team, 3 lawyers in suits that probably cost more than Tom's car. She looked pale but composed. Every inch the CEO, except for the way her hands trembled around her coffee cup. Marcus sat on a bench between 2 court officers, looking smaller than his 8 years in his formal clothes, when he saw Emma. His face lit up briefly before remembering he was supposed to be serious. The children will be interviewed separately. One of Victoria's lawyers explained to Tom, Judge Morrison likes to hear from them directly in custody modifications. Where's Richard? Tom asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Conference room B, the lawyer said with distaste, with his team, all 5 of them. 5 lawyers, because apparently destroying his ex-wife required a full legal battalion. Tom started toward Victoria, but her lead attorney intercepted him. Mr. Henderson, we need to discuss your testimony. My testimony. Mr. Sterling has indicated he'll be calling you as a witness. Something about demonstrating the inappropriate influences on Marcus. The lawyer Diane something studied him over her glasses. We need to prepare you for cross-examination. But before they could begin, the courtroom doors opened. Time to begin. Judge Morrison looked like everyone's favorite grandmother, white-haired and kind-eyed until she spoke. Then Steele showed through the softness. This is a custody modification hearing, not a trial, she announced. I'll remind all parties that my only concern is the best interests of the minor child. Marcus Sterling, grandstanding, character assassination, or turning this into a circus will not be tolerated.